Okay, here we are. Just responding to Joel, and he's responding, I guess, to Matt's question. What do you think about the Beatles breaking up? I was listening to Joel, and I thought I can go back, and this happened. The Beatles broke up when I was 14, 70. Yeah, I was grade 9 or grade 10, but I had been a fan since I was like 10 years old, 9, 10. Of course, pretty young and everything, but I mean, every album that came out, the American Canadian versions, Hard Day's Night, Beatles 65, then Beatles 6, and Rubber Soul, and it continued from there. Uh, but they were magic. I mean, you look forward to every album, every single, everything that came out. And I mean, uh, by me, it's almost as if they couldn't do anything that was wrong. There's hardly any songs. Joe, you were mentioning a few off of the White Album, and yeah, they should never have been on there because there's so many songs that are strong. I think George Martin said that he could have made one good, strong album out of that. So, going back to the question, I mean, so I was in high school, grade 9, grade 10, and for somebody who'd been there for a number of years, it was hard. I mean, can you imagine something that was so important like that? And it seemed to me, and probably a number of people, can you imagine? It was, and then I grew up in Ottawa, Canada, the capital of the country, and I can remember on the front page of the paper, it alluded to Paul McCartney that he's left the Beatles and the Beatles have broke up. Now we know all the story. We kind of stole the thunder from Lennon, who had basically said, "Hey, the group's over," and but someone said, "Keep your mouth shut about it for a while." But it was tough. And I was looking the other day at Rolling Stone's top 500 albums, and you can see a number of them, in the top 10, top 15. Most of the Beatle albums, Pepper number 1, Revolver 3, and goes on from there. Uh, and I went through this fairly quickly, so I could have missed something. But I mean, there was a few Lennon albums there. Harrison's All Things Must Pass. He'd Be Living in the Material World. I don't think I came across anything from McCartney at all. That's not to say he didn't have good albums. Band on the Run. Over the years there was some good stuff, but uh, for me, what was lacking was the magic, and I think you had to kind of have been there. I was young, but I mean, if you go back and you play the Beatle albums, with the four of them together, there's a magic there. I mean, you really just enjoy listening to that, and there's always something missing. I think especially with Martin McCartney, his lyrics sometimes were pretty poor. But lots of good songs. His thing was the music. Um, Certainly, I agree with Joe. You're talking about Harrison. So many songs that could have or wouldn't have never made it on a Beatle album. So uh, it is what it is. From a fan's point of view, though, I'm saying it was tough, and it took time to adjust. And but as you stated, with their relationships the way they were, it's like I think Lennon said, it's like being in the army. At some point, you got to leave and go on with your life, and maybe that was it. And then the other element too is that other than uh, yeah, Magical Mystery Tour, I mean, everything was just love. All the singles number one and everything. So it's just great. I don't think they could have continued very long. But you accept what happened, and I've got lots of the albums of McCartney and Harrison in particular. Um, a few Lennon's. Never got Double Fantasy, and I'm glad I didn't. I really didn't see having one side for Yoko. I'm not too much of a big fan of Ringo either, but I guess ultimately you accept what is, and you enjoy the music wherever it came from. And I can look back and see, as a kid, it was the Beatles. They were together, and then in high school and going past that, solo albums, and they have continued all the way along, right up to the album New with McCartney, and I've only listened to Ringo, a few of the songs on his new album. Um, but it's been a heck of a ride with them and their music, and I guess from my point of view, I just close with saying that when they broke up, it was pretty hard on me, and something you thought was so important, and a real joy. And after that, it was kind of fragmented, and there was some good, but that's the way it is, and it's the way life is. I agree. The Rolling Stones are still together, and I like them a lot, but they've had their ups and downs, and I don't know. Kind of, Joyce was saying, it's probably just as well that we saw them go out on top, and there wasn't any failure in regards to their albums. And I still sit back and love listening to them. Me more the Beatles albums than the solo. So just thought I'd throw this in for somebody who was young at the time, but I guess it was 1970. Um, I was 16 when they broke up. So from that perspective, being a little older, just to see what that meant to me and how to express it here. And anyway, just wanted to share that, and I guess that's it for